I'm Allison Jonjak, the Cranberry Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. These videos are the on-demand recordings of UW Extension and the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association's virtual brown bag lunch series. These monthly sessions offer growers and researchers a way to share timely and relevant information. We hope you'll enjoy and continue to engage with us.
Hi, I'm Tom Lochner, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. We're excited to be a partner with Extension to bring you research-backed resources, tools, and tips to keep Wisconsin marshes productive and profitable.
So welcome to our May virtual brown bag cranberry growing season updates. We are going to have a good panel of information from our experts today. And in terms of housekeeping, if you want to keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question, we do encourage people to ask questions throughout, and I'm going to be moderating the chat. So if you have a question that you want to unmute yourself and ask, go for it. If you have a question you want to type into the chat, I'll be watching the chat. And then also if you want to ask an anonymous question in the drop-down, choose just Allison Jonjak, and then I'll read that question out on your behalf anonymously. There are also closed captions available if that is preferred for you for accessing versus audio. And so just click that little ... and show closed captions. With that, I'll give pass the mic over to Tom Lochner, who will give us a welcome on behalf of the Wisconsin Cranberry State Growers Association. So I will offer that to you, Tom.
Oh, well, thank you, Allison, and good afternoon to everybody. Our monthly brown bags continue, and I'm glad to see so many growers that are participating today. Just a couple of quick things for you to mark on your calendar that are coming up is on the 14th of June will be the Cranberry Open at Bullseye Country Club in Wisconsin Rapids, and the registrations are open. Whether you're a golfer or not, it's a good time to get out and interact with the fellow growers and members of the cranberry community. And it's always a fun time and a good day. If you need information, I know Alex has sent out registration forms, and we can always steer you in the right direction if you have any questions about getting involved. Second item is we will be holding the summer meeting this year again at the research station on August 9th. That information is going out as well and will be in the next issue of the WSCGA News. We hope to see you all there. We're going to have maybe a program that's a little similar in format as last year. We'll have a lot of new things to talk about that's going on at the station and within the industry. So hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks to Allison and Alex for putting the program together again today, and for all of our speakers who are joining us this afternoon. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Allison, and hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll get some sleep and won't have to be up watching frost.
That's always the good hope. Thanks, Tom. So we've got oh no, my photos overlapped my text, but we've got a really good selection of speakers today. Pamela Verholst from Ladybug IPM is going to give us an overview of what she's been seeing in the field. Oops, I advanced a little too fast. And then John Moss and Paul Potter are both going to speak on the benefits of data collection and what data management can do for your marsh. And then we'll close up with Amaya Atucha on a lot of our spring questions, especially focusing on leaf drop and on side shooting. So I think we can then move on to John Moss and Paul Potter, who are going to give us first each an overview of Blossom and of CranTrak, a couple of the special features there. And then we're going to do this in kind of a Q&A panel. The Education Committee had asked for extra information for growers about how data management can help your farm. So I think, John, if you wanted to share your screen, I'll click stop here on mine so you can share yours.
Okay, so hi everybody. This is Blossom. Blossom is a software that we created for the cranberry industry for data management. the idea with Blossom was to have a central location where you could have all of the data for your farm. So it handles everything from nutrient management to pest management to water management, you know, equipment maintenance records, harvest data, standing records, and so on. We only have a minute or two to go over it right now, so I'm just going to do a high level, but you can see we're on the dashboard right now. This is just a breakdown of the varieties and the nutrients for the year. You can see throughout the application, you can switch between whatever year you want to look at or enter data for. Bed section, the beds are all color coded by variety and grouped into bed blocks. You can go into a bed to find out anything about that bed for that year, whether it's the nutrients or the pests or the sprinkler lines that are in it. Also in the nutrient section here, this is where you would enter in your fertilizer applications. You can do, you know, soil and tissue test imports, set up management units, custom fertilizer blends, and so on. The pest section, this is where you would enter your pesticide applications in, but it's also where you can do your scouting reports. Third-party scouts can enter the reports in themselves, or you can do your own in-house scouting reports. One nice feature about Blossom is when you're doing things like entering applications, we have a nice bed selector, makes it easy to, you know, quick select some beds, or if you're just doing a certain variety, you can click on that variety and then apply the application. Harvest records, yeah, we try to do as much importing as we can. So in this case, these are delivery records imported from Ocean Spray. This allows you to take all this data and then run reports on it. Equipment, there's equipment maintenance records. So if you go into one of the machines, you can see all the maintenance records for that machine. You can inventory the parts and the fluids that are used for that machine. As well as, you know, track all the information like license plate numbers, VIN numbers, and so on. Water management, you can track all your flooding and your irrigation. This all flows through to the water use reports that calculate the numbers that you need to upload your gallonage to the DNR water use website. And then sanding records. Sanding is pretty straightforward, just how many inches you put on, how many beds, and what days. One of the benefits of Blossom is all of the reports. We're adding reports almost every other week at this point. Anything from, you know, bed reports, nutrient reports, pest reports, a lot of harvest reports, equipment inventory reports, sanding and water. But I think my time's up, but that's the high level overview of Blossom. I'm sure we'll have questions later.
Thank you, John, for that quick overview. And then Paul, if you want to give, whether it's verbal or screen share, however you would want to do your quick introduction of what CranTrak offers. Yes. Yes.
So this is CranTrak. Originally wrote CranTrak in 1994 as a college programming project for Craig Scott. Kind of it wasn't a good option in the industry, so he pushed me to do this. So, and it's grown from there. We, along with everything that is done for you, we also migrate your data to the Cranberry receiving station side and then to the handler side through that. So one of the important pieces when you look at record keeping is that whole traceability component. And pesticide traceability is, as you all know, a big component, and it's only going to get more important. So that data flows through to your handlers, flows up from there within CranTrak. So handlers have got the ability to see your data as you transfer it to them, and then jump up to the receiving station. So the solution is a all-inclusive integrated system. So we can trace fruit from the bin container all the way back to you to know the when, what, and where of applications and such. So this is, you know, as any interface, web interface goes. Left side is your menu, your bed listing, showing you all of your bed details, including a timeline feature that timelines everything that you've done over the years. Jumping from year to year is as simple as up on the top, the navigation to kick and jump from year to year or go right to your current year. Fertilizer, pesticide, all you would expect, all of your details about that. Again, looking at year comparisons exist here. All your details of your applications. Pesticide component is the same. Noting gives you the ability to freehand, you know, do some notes, which with whatever open note capability you want to do. Sanding, and then obviously your yield. The other jumping down through the dashboard component gives you a quick view that you can customize within the app to say what you want to show on this dashboard. So it's kind of a quick shot view of the marsh. Adding is items is as simple as, you know, clicking the plus button here to add those applications. You'll also notice sub menus here, so your applicator information, all your labeling information, everything's specific to that component. Water management components are the same pieces where we're reporting. You got the reports capability to kick up to water usage on all your flooding, irrigation, that type of thing. Your nutrient management plans are in here along with all your samples, soil and tissue. Sanding is one of the things within the reporting component. A lot of growers like the sanding report shows you a breakdown over the years. So as you're doing your planning for sanding for the year, you get an idea of the when and what you've done in a grid format. So as you'd expect, a number of reports that are out there under the reports option. Equipment as well. So all of your equipment's in here, keeping track of, you know, again, all of your filters and parts usage and maintenance that you do. CranTrak's got the ability for you to control all of the who has access. So there's security controls, so you can grant user to simply see the equipment and not see any of the marsh data. So you were in control of all of that user who has access and that type of thing. So that's CranTrak in a nutshell.
Wonderful. I kind of, as my charge as extension, of course, is education rather than you know, choosing or highlighting any particular one product or another. So I'm grateful for both of you for being willing to join and discuss with us kind of the benefits of data tracking, what that can do for our marshes. And so I'm gonna kind of pull us into now a kind of panel discussion. So we did have the direct question from the education committee, let's talk about data management. And so I'm glad that we can get this in a, what good does data management do for your marsh? So if both Paul and John want to give a quick, what is something that you have seen a user go from, you know, not having visibility of this information to now that they have visibility, what choice can they make better? What's kind of a success story from once we started doing data tracking?
I can jump in. I see delay there, John, so I'll jump in. You know, when I started with CranTrak, it was the days of floppy disks and installation and no internet and that world. And when you look at what that brought, you know, I had growers that were using the application that they'd back up the data from one computer and take it to another. So that sharing of information was complex. And I think, you know, when you look at so many marshes that got family members that are multiple people managing, and the ability to see that data and look at it with a different set of eyes and think about where things are at and where you want to go, I think is a huge, powerful component of connected access to data to make those decisions. And then just the whole historical component when, you know, you think about, all right, when did we do this last year? And the ability to have that data at your fingertips instead of looking through sheets of paper is a huge benefit when you're looking at making those decisions.
So we've had that data in the past, but maybe siloed with one person or in a filing cabinet, and now all 6 people can take a look at it simultaneously, and so that makes a big difference. John, you want to add your follow-ups to that?
Yeah, I think another big benefit is having it work on your mobile devices. So being able to enter the data right when you're putting a fertilizer on, you're in the tractor, you can enter it in. It doesn't have to get written on a piece of paper, like it's sent to the office and somebody enters it in potentially incorrectly. There's just a single source of truth. It gets entered in, it's tracked what user enters it. And so, you know, there's accountability for the data that's entered in. But besides just entering data, being able to view all of this data out in the field is a huge benefit. I'd say that almost gets more use than the data entry. When you're out in the field looking at something, wondering what's going on, you can have that information at your fingertips. You can look it up, make a decision, and move on. Those are the big benefits. And also, you know, remote viewing, like the scouting reports. The scout goes around, and as soon as they're done, the report's already in my pocket. We can look at it. Or if I'm out of town or anybody is in a different city, they can still help manage the farm.
Awesome. Yeah, the cross locations connectedness and the kind of immediate response connectiveness as well are really big things as our marshes get kind of more and more complex. There's more and more information to manage, and just having the information in your pocket when it's bigger than fits in your hand, having it fit in your phone is that much better. Is there, I'd say, what % of growers of your user bases are having both their IPM Scout on a system that's the same system you're using for the marsh? Is that pretty complete, or is that kind of half-half? Or
Well, that's it's increasing every year, but that's something that, you know, has to be negotiated with the scouting groups, whether or not they're comfortable using the software. And so, in the case of Blossom, you know, we've been trialing it over the last couple of years, and this year, Ladybug's been rolling it out to a larger set of growers, and so every year it's been increasing.
Paul, is that the experience you've had as well?
Yeah, in CranTrak, we've not done, you know, one of the early versions of CranTrak, we had that built in, and it was a very low use component. And I know as things have progressed as far as connectivity, and to John's point, the scout going out and that data being instantly entered as a huge piece. And that's something that we're working on in the next version that we're working on right now, is reintroducing that. You know, it's kind of like the mapping components. It was in the beginning, we did mapping of that information, and that was another very low use piece, and it's gaining some traction now again as Google Maps and the like become more and more powerful. So it's an ongoing thing. But
I saw Pam open her video, so I'm going to pin her for a second and see if you got to chime in.
And what's interesting with all of this is that we're transitioning as your marshes, your generations, and even my mom and I. So for me to get out my phone and be like, boom, 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 is one thing, and mom to do it is like, oh, wait, am I doing this right? But I got her a bigger tablet, and she's using it. She's trying. And I love having, being able to do that as long as we have service. So that's another thing. Like if you're out in the middle of nowhere, sometimes the service is hard. But being able to look at your beds in that way, whether it's nutrients or even the insects and just all your history. And then we added like a uploading a picture component. So for example, this is my first week trying it with the pictures. Somebody was going to put on a grass herbicide. So I took a picture of the grass and the grass stage and the plant stage. So like later they can look back and say like, oh, either I did it right, or maybe it should have been, you know, when that blood wasn't as far along, or that grass was a little bit shorter. So the pictures can really speak a lot of words, and that, like the leaf drop and stuff, like we can take pictures and see the progress of things like that, or if you have a hot spot or something. So that's nice. And then just being able to see everything summarized on one page with both programs, whether it's nutrients, or I use CranTrak a lot for harvest, and how he can put in the active ingredients and all the different pesticides everybody uses, and then having those red flags. I think both of you have it. Like if you try to use a pesticide and you're not really supposed to, because your code book says you're not, it will give you like a red flag, like, hey, you're not supposed to use this. So I think that helps keep growers on track too. And yeah, I'm excited to see where these programs keep going.
Awesome. Thanks for adding. I might have muted. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for adding that. And I want to encourage questions from growers too, whether you are using one of these already, or if you're not using them and you're curious about what kind of changes that would mean. Is there a kind of barrier to entry based on your staff on the marsh? What if there are hurdles to uptake that way? While we wait for questions to come in, I also want to mention that as I help with DATCAP and the DNR, when we have our annual training for the creation of nutrient management plans, that growers can sit in those trainings and then create their own nutrient management plans. People who use either one of these tracking softwares will come in with their printouts and say, here's my binder ready for ready for a thumbs up, because everything's already in one place, and it kind of reduces your reporting burden because you've already done it over the course of your year. And so I see a lot of benefit that growers can get from that, just in terms of time saving. Other questions or any input, either John or Paul, on the nutrient management components, just because that's what I see most frequently in the role that I interact with.
I think the huge part of the nutrient management plan component is it doing all the math for you. You know, let the computer do all the work that it's designed to do, and grind all those averages up, and not have to, hand calculate things. It's a huge piece of what we use technology for. Make it easy work instead of hard work. So
yes.
Right, that 5-year report in the 590 nutrient management report doesn't look like it was designed to be created by humans. There's way too much number crunching going on. I honestly don't know how people do it manually.
I can speak on that. So I started putting together plans back in like 2008, and anytime, so this is before Blossom, but somebody had it on CranTrak, I'm like, thank God, because everything was calculated, and otherwise I had to do spreadsheets, and yeah, it was a lot of cutting and pasting and moving and writing formulas in Excel just to save me some time. And then the other growers, you print it off, and I guess you're hand calculating and filling in your numbers, unless you have this program or you're good with Excel or a different program like that. So it's a huge time saver.
That's kind of in my book always the best possible use of, oh good, I'm okay at math, but computers are much faster and much better. And if I double check myself, I have to double check everything. A computer, I run a couple spot checks and say, oh good, it's got it. And I can move along and have those printouts ready for anyone that needs reassurance that we're doing our nutrients correctly. Any questions from growers? Let's talk a little bit about harvest and how harvest reporting works, whether the information originates with the grower or with the handler at the receiving station. No immediate jumps up. There we go.
Yeah, so in the case of Blossom, in the case of Elm Lake Cranberry, which is the file that I'm showing you right now, the harvest data originates with Ocean Spray in this case, and the delivery data is just imported in So you import, you download the ocean spray data and you import it in. And then, so each one of these corresponds to an ocean spray delivery. From the harvest dashboard here, you can see this is as we're going through harvest, this goes from 0% to 100%, this circle here. You can click on and see which beds have been harvested, which ones are inactive, and so on. And each one of these corresponds to a delivery that came in from ocean spray. You can see these little green check marks. This means that it's synced up properly to a name in Blossom. Otherwise, it'll flag it that something isn't matching up. If you click into one, you can see, you know, what the color was in the barrels and the different tests that were run on it and so on. But then this data then flows through to all of the reports. So you can do, you know, just a basic report, like a per bed report. But you can also do more complicated ones like variety comparison. Go back to last year. So, you know, you can see each of the varieties, what the barrels per acre were on average, and the other traits. You can also see, like, okay, last year, D. Moranville are 7% of our total acres, but it was 10% of our total barrels. So you can start to, you know, get insight into which varieties are performing better year over year. There's also the harvest timeline. So this just shows you what harvest looked like for this year. So you can see last year what varieties we started with, and then as we were going through, the blue and the green represents ones that were record yields for that bed, and the blue are ones that beat the prior 4-year average. So you can see just a way to look back and get a summary of how the whole harvest went.
And
there's
that can
also a calendar. Sorry.
Yep. As you're loading that calendar, I'll say, so when I put out a trial with someone, and if there's crop destruct, I say, you know, let me know the usual time you harvest that bed, and I'll have my crop destruct out of the way 7 days before your usual day. That lets you just look it up and say, this day. So go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. And then this is just basically a calendar view of the same thing, you know, what barrels were delivered on which days. And it just helps to plan for the next year when you need to schedule harvest deliveries. So.
Awesome. Paul, do you have any additions to harvest? And I guess this is also hopefully useful for those of you who are already using a tracking product to think about reports that exist in here that you didn't know existed. And okay, now I can run that and be that much more efficient. But Paul, anything to highlight in your harvest process?
Yeah, I mean, and there's kind of a different approach, but we take with being able to take data to the receiving station, and we're continuing to add more receiving stations into the mix that are integrated and use CranTrak, that side of it. It gives us the ability to do that delivery data and all that data back and forth live fire. So what I mean by that is immediate reporting when a delivery semi hits the scale, and that data comes and then lab data comes back and gets entered in. That all that data live fires through when that handler and receiving station are integrated. So, and then that data comes immediately back into CranTrak without any need for a file import. And I'm a you know, in the technology realm, the need for a human to have to do anything as far as transferring data around, I think it needs to not be the process. It needs to be automated. These systems need to talk to one another and have all of that occur automatically. And this is give you an idea of data coming back. This is our view on that yield report for the year, and looking at, you know, where our average is, who's above, who's below in bed data, and then those overall barrel per acre for the year and 5-year averages. So bringing that data back in once it's in and scrambling it around is this is just one of the reports that does that. And again, back to that traceability. you put a chemical on and that pre-harvest interval isn't hit, and hits the scale at a receiving station, and that should red flag right there and say, hey, you either entered data wrong, or you're out of compliance. So all of those things are occurring through that whole integrated process. So
Awesome. Thank you both. That kind of wraps up our time that we had on data management. Although if there are any more questions, feel free to either unmute yourselves and ask, or ask them in the chat, and I'll ask our panelists. We'll have kind of a blank Q&A section at the end of the session. And as always, if you have things that you'd like to hear at a brown bag, either directly letting me know or talking to any of the members on the Growers Association Education Committee is how we get the ideas for who to invite. So thank you to John and Paul for joining us today and giving us a little bit of information on how data management can make cranberry growing easier. All right. Thanks, everyone. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank Tom and Alex for helping host as part of the Growers Association. I want to thank the Education Committee for helping us have topics to discuss. And of course, thanking Amaya and Paul and John and Pam for joining us to share their thoughts and observations. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month.